President Trump just took another shot at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It happened just moments ago. The commander-in-chief posted the following on social media, quote, "This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing and Europe." In the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. What are they thinking? Now, the president was responding to Zelensky's comments that the end of the war between Ukraine and Russia is still, quote, very far away. Two verys there. He also wrote, America will not put up with this much longer. CNN is covering this from all angles. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Matthew Chance is in Moscow, but we are going to start at the White House with Jeff Zelensky. Jeff, can you explain a little bit more about this escalation that is on top of course, all of the escalations that we've seen starting with Friday?
Dana, it's the latest sign that temperatures have not cooled at all since Friday afternoon. During your show, when that meeting went entirely off the rails in the Oval Office with the biggest diplomatic breakdown that anyone certainly has seen in the television era. And the president posting just a short time ago, America will not put up with this for much longer. That is a bit of an ultimatum, signaling the fact that it raises a lot of questions. One question is, will the U.S. Withdraw its military assistance? Officials say that and everything else is on the table. The president actually was asked that by reporters as we saw him leave the White House on Friday night. He says, I will not answer that, but made clear it was on the table. So now, as we begin a new week here, after a weekend of European leaders rallying around Volodymyr Zelensky, the White House is not backing down at all. They are still ramping up their criticism of his conduct, of his behavior. And the president here was reacting to really the events of the weekend, as well as what he believes is Zelensky's insistence that he does not want this war to end. That, of course, is not the full picture. The full picture is how it would end, how peace talks would begin. A security agreement is still not been something that this White House is willing to discuss. So never mind the fact that Friday began as the idea of opening the door to signing a deal with Ukraine. That is not even being discussed now. It's about a continuing U.S. involvement in protecting Ukraine. And Dana, this was this deal was intended to be one of the centerpieces of the president's joint address to a joint session of Congress tomorrow evening. That, of course, is out the window. But clearly, he's keeping up this pressure and criticism, trying to put all the blame on Zelensky and the Ukraine side, as opposed to sort of answering any of the criticism that was at the U.S. Side, at least partially to blame for this. The White House is giving no inch on that, Dana.
Here at the table today, CNN's Manu Raju, Carl Hulse of the New York Times, and Jasmine Wright of Notice. It is your birthday. Happy birthday, Jasmine.
Happy birthday.
Thank you for spending it with us on this bright and cheery Monday. Just to go back to what President Trump said in that post that just came out right before our program started, saying that he doesn't believe that Volodymyr Zelensky wants peace. And I wanted to pull up what the Kremlin spokesman said about Volodymyr Zelensky, because it's very similar. The Kyiv regime and Zelensky do not want peace. They want the war to continue.
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I think we're starting to see this amp up of pressure from the Trump world that they want Zelensky out, or at least they certainly don't support him staying in. And I was actually struck by even what the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, told you just yesterday about that, suggesting that, Churchill, comparing this to how Churchill stepped aside as they tried to negotiate peace post-World War II.
The talking points, that I want to get to that in a second, but what do you make of the talking points continue to run sort of in mirror image of one another from the Kremlin and the leader of the free world?
It is pretty remarkable, and it's one that's going to cause a lot of concern among key elements of his own party. We saw one member speaking out this weekend, Senator Lisa Murkowski, saying it makes her sick to her stomach that it appears that Donald Trump is aligning himself more and more with Putin. The question for me, too, is that how much does this impact the leverage and the ultimate negotiations to end this war, in the sense that Russia does not have to give up a whole lot now. They may actually this may actually prolong the war. Why would they need to actually cut a deal here if U.S. is not going to stand behind Ukraine at this key moment? So for Russia, this is great news for them, because they could ultimately get a lot more than what they would ultimately get if the U.S. was standing firmly with Ukraine.
And you did see both the president's advisors and members of his administration and also his top allies on Capitol Hill this weekend trying to thread a needle that I'm not so sure is threadable, frankly, which is saying, on the one hand, that this is all about Ukraine and it's all in Ukraine's ball is in Ukraine's court. They don't hold the cards. And on the other hand, you had the House Speaker tell me, my question to him was basically, what do you think of Vladimir Putin? Listen to his response.
Putin is the aggressor. It is an unjust war. We have been crystal clear about that. But now is the time to bring it to an end. I think Vladimir Putin is an old school communist, a former KGB agent. And he's not to be trusted, and he is dangerous. The way I view this is that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are engaged in a new Axis powers, and they are not on America's side. Let's be crystal clear about that.
So you can almost see him trying to keep the train on tracks on the most fundamental question, which is, who is the U.S. aligned with right now? Is it the good guys or is it the bad guys, to put it in really elementary terms? He's trying to say, no, he's still a bad guy. But that doesn't seem to be where the policy is headed right now in these really difficult negotiations.
Super hard for people on the Hill. After years and years of being anti-Russian, anti-Putin, now they're having to make this shift. Johnson himself was kind of interesting. We had this story over the weekend. You know, it's like he had supported this, put his job on the line, and now it's like, well, I only
asked him about that.
Yeah, I only did that because, of course, I wanted to get to this point. Well, I don't remember that being a big part of the discussion at that time. I think that, you know, for people like Mitch McConnell, this is just anathema. But there's a lot of people who share that view. I don't think that they're going to be out there pushing it, but how they deal with this Putin question. And that you start to see Marco Rubio, people like, wait, this is what we voted for Marco Rubio for. He was, we thought he was going to be the sort of common sense person in the administration. This is our position. You know, and everything with Trump is a negotiation. So it's hard to tell kind of what he's doing here, but he has I don't normally say that Trump is a unifying figure, but he has unified Europe against us, and that's interesting to watch.
But by the way, when Johnson says we've been crystal clear that Putin has been the aggressor, the United States voted against a United Nations resolution saying that
5
Putin
days ago.
was the
Didn't just
aggressor.
abstain, voted no.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you were referring to, which is just back on the global stage and what the maneuvering really is behind the scenes and in public. Inside the Trump administration, vis-a-vis trying to potentially just push Zelensky out. Listen to the exchange I had with the president's national security advisor.
Are you suggesting that President Trump wants Zelensky to resign?
We need a leader that can deal with us, eventually deal with the Russians, and end this war. And if it becomes apparent that President Zelensky's either personal motivations or political motivations are divergent from ending the fighting in his country, then I think we have a real issue on our hands.
Yeah, I was in the South Lawn on Friday when President Trump was asked this by reporters, just a reporter to my shoulder, said, do you want Zelensky to step down? Do you basically want a regime change? And the president seemed kind of hesitant to go that far. He said, I want somebody who can make peace. If that is Zelensky, fine. If that's not, then, you know, maybe we have to go somewhere else. But he didn't want to go that far. But I think that his answer really answered the floodgates for the rest of the Trump administration to double down and start pushing further and further onto this fact that maybe Zelensky should not be the person that is leading in Ukraine. I think one thing that is very, very evident is that any of the Republicans who are more globally minded, more defense hawks, this idea that the temperature would be taken down over the weekend, that has basically gone by the wayside. What the reality is that the energy inside the White House is shifting. They are doubling down on this position. They are doubling down on basically being against Zelensky. And I think even more importantly, the MAGA base is doubling down on it. They were already people who were kind of moving against foreign aid, not kind of, really moving against foreign aid.
They were there.
Yeah, they were there, moving against funding wars in different parts of the globe. And they kind of were sucking it up because this is a deal that Trump wanted to make. Now that it seems that this deal is not going to happen, you're seeing MAGA people kind of revel in the fact that we don't want to be a part of this, and Donald Trump shouldn't be a part of it either.
The anti-Ukraine wing of the GOP used to be so small, right? Remember when Zelensky came and addressed a joint session of Congress not too long ago? Standing and cheering both sides of the aisle, and it was the Matt Gaetzes, Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world that are on that contingent. It is much bigger now, and that's exemplified by Lindsey Graham being at the White House, speaking out against Zelensky just on Friday.
No question. As we go to break, I just want to emphasize and underscore where we started this program, which is that, as you said, the president is doubling down, tripling down on the tense relationship and on the notion that they are kind of done with Zelensky, saying America will not put up with it much longer. Really big development in a series of monumental developments.